All right, welcome back, everybody. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We've got Sixers Nets tomorrow. Coverage begins at 2:30. Brian Lewis, New York Post, covers the Brooklyn Nets NBA as the playoffs are underway as the Sixers face a pesky Nets team. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
All right. How you doing?
We're doing good. I think we're doing good. The Sixers fans are a little leery of this Brooklyn Nets team. You're around them all the time. 42-40. And the 4 games, they split 2 each. Is this a series that the Nets are kind of like, hey, this is probably a good matchup for us?
Well, I don't think they'd ever say that publicly, but I do get the sense that if they had to pick between Milwaukee and Toronto and Philadelphia, this is probably the one that they have the most confidence in, because it's of those 3, this is the one that they perform the best against. As you know, they split the season series, whereas they lost the season series to both the Raptors and the Bucks. And Philadelphia's had issues with any team that can, put guards on the floor, that can put the ball on the deck and get downhill, and can excel in the pick and roll, and that's basically the strength of this Nets team. Dinwiddie had, I believe, 39 points in one game in Philadelphia. D'Angelo Russell's pretty much been at a consistent all-star level all year, and Karis LeVert is finding his feet after that injury, finding his legs under him after that injury. So I think they're probably coming into this series fairly confident that they can make some noise or even pull off an upset here.
Now, Brian, are they buying any of this Embiid stuff? I mean, the Sixer fans are in a panic here. Is Brooklyn believing that Joel might not play?
No, not at all. Not at all. They're not buying that at all. Yeah. I mean, clearly, if you watch from the outside, at least, there is obviously something awry with his knee. I mean, when you look at the number of games that he's missed, and I mean, it goes beyond regular load management. So, yes, do they believe he's probably not 100% or is carefully being managed? Yes. Do they really believe that they're going to step out on the court Saturday in Game 1 and he won't be there? No, that they're not buying.
Brian Lewis covers the Nets for the New York Post. We'll see if Joel Embiid plays. Many people feel that he will, and that's a problem for the Nets. He really had a big game against them. The one time the Sixers had their full lineup, that was about 2-3 weeks ago, Brian. They had their way with the Nets. Does that matchup, raise any eyebrows of, if the Sixers bring it against the Nets, you can tell that these two teams, talent-wise, are on different levels?
Well, the best player in the series is obviously Embiid, and he's capable of dominating as he did that day. If you watch the first 5 minutes of that game, the mismatch was so glaring against Jared Allen that Kenny Atkinson had no choice but to pull a starting center. Now, there were tons of extraneous circumstances in all of these games, so it's difficult to draw a conclusion from necessarily 5 minutes. Yes, that was the first time that the Sixers has had their full line up against the Nets, and it's really the last time that we've seen a lot of that starting 5, if memory serves me, for Philadelphia. The Nets were coming. That was the last game of the 7-city, 17-day road trip for the Nets. And also, when you get into a playoff series and you have teams playing each other on a daily basis, under those circumstances, you actually have teams that are, they're in a position where they're able to game plan.
Right.
It's difficult to do a lot of game planning during the regular season because you don't get that much practice. So now, you might see Embiid, if he plays in Game 1, go off for 30, and then you might see the Nets react in a way where they might double him more, or maybe they'll go small and try to force him to run around and defend more. It's difficult to make a blanket assessment in the playoffs when you see guys adjusting and playing chess from Game 1 to Game 2 or Game 3 to Game 4. But yes, I think it's clear that Embiid is the best player on either roster. and the one most capable of dominating the series. So, above and beyond, the one thing that they have to worry about stopping, because, yes, if he is able to get on that kind of roll again, then the game will be over and the series will be short.
We'll leave you with this one. Brian Lewis covers the Nets for the New York Post. Ben Simmons, what is the Nets' view of Simmons? A lot of teams defend him in odd ways. You see them really fall off of him, and they don't respect. Obviously, nobody respects the fact that he's going to shoot. But how do the Nets match up and think of Ben Simmons?
Well, my suspicion is, one, that they won't have – I mean, he's a point guard. I put that in air quotes. But, I don't think they'll have D'Angelo Russell guarding him. I think you're more likely to have a wing guarding him. That could end up being Rodion Stooks, which is, he's their power forward for the moment.
Right.
I think they'll have a longer player guarding him. I don't think you'll see the point guards following him around. My suspicion is that you'd have somebody a little longer dealing with him. But as far as the way they view him as a shooter, I think we can all see that his jump shot is not necessarily where he's comfortable with it. So I would imagine they would defend him accordingly.
It is rather bizarre. I'm up there all the time, and he stands in that corner and drains threes like they're going out of style, but just doesn't have the trigger when the bright lights are on. It's a very bizarre and odd thing to kind of watch him do in pre-games where it's like, hey, just banging threes left and right. Do you think this is a pesky long series, or do you think talent wins out and gets the Sixers on pretty quickly?
Well, what are we defining as quickly?
Yeah, you're 4 or 5. The Nets get 1 or 2. Maybe, one.
I would see the Nets. I would expect the Nets to get 2 in this series.
A little 6-gamer.
Sixers to advance.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That game tomorrow, 2:30, right here, 97.3 ESPN. Monday night, 8 o'clock. We'll have it, and Thursday night, 8 o'clock. We'll have it. Next Saturday, 3 o'clock. Brian Lewis, New York Post, Nets Sixers, round 1 tomorrow. Thank you, pal. Appreciate it.
All right, much obliged.
All right, Brian Lewis here, like all guests appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline as the Nets in town tomorrow. It is odd, the Brooklyn Nets, and there's a piece that Brian wrote in the Post about how the Nets kind of look at their build and kind of have some pride, like, hey, we didn't tank, we're building with pieces. We can get into that, I think the Nets have been pretty bad for a while, and they did it without draft picks, really. They had one of the problems is they had no draft choices. They were so bad, and being bad didn't help them because they got no draft choices. They made the trade to get D'Angelo Russell. Karis LeVert turned into a nice player, and they did it kind of a pseudo-traditional way. But do we feel like the Nets are building towards a championship, or are they building towards mediocrity? That's for you to decide. You know my feeling on all that. 609-403-0973 is the text board. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN.